Chapter 12, Grand Opening. Cleo spied it immediately. A square picnic table in front of a wooden arbor covered in vines. The perfect spot to set up shop. She and Kaylee, who had walked with them to the park, tacked the banner to the arbor while Josh and Barkley ran around on the playground. Cleo spread the beach towel on the table, then laid out her business tools: the floss, the gauze, the gloves, and of course the extractor extraordinaire. Finally, she set out the bag of cookies. Kaylee had made a sign-up sheet so they'd have people's email addresses, she said, which could be used for future marketing if you want. My dad does that with car businesses. Of course, plus we'll need them for people who buy a recording. Great idea, C-O-O. Cleo held up her hand and they slapped a high five. She put up the clipboard with the sign-up sheet on the table. All set. Now all they needed was some customers. They sat next to each other on one of the benches attached to the table. Cleo admired Kaylee's camera with all its fancy features. My parents would never buy me something like this. They don't think I take care of my stuff. Plus, they couldn't afford it. Kaylee scoffed. My dad just likes to spend money. My parents fought all the time about it. Cleo glanced at the time on Mom's phone. 10:06. What if no one showed? And after she had talked so confidently about it all around school, Lexi Lewis would love that. To get her mind on something other than her arch enemy, she showed her arch friend how to tie a piece of floss to a missile and create a slip knot at the end. They each did 3. Now they were really ready. Cleo's quick and painless tooth removal service was open for business. Her stomach felt queasy again. Maybe she was just hungry. Want a breakfast cookie? Kaylee said okay, and Cleo handed her a dense, lumpy mound. Kaylee nibbled on her cookie. Cleo took a bite. Not splendarvelous, she thought, but not horrible either. She ate the whole thing in a few bites. Kaylee set hers down on the towel, just as Jimmy Ryerson jogged over waving some dollar bills. Cleo jumped up and went around to the front of the table. That YouTube video was so cool, he said, putting his money on the table. Cleo was glad Mom and Dad weren't there. She didn't know what they'd have to say if someone mentioned the video once Dad came. Hi, Jimmy, we're ready for you. She picked up the Nerf gun, but suddenly inspiration caused her to put it back down. Actually, would you mind if we waited a few minutes? Why? For PR purposes. PR? Jimmy asked. Public relations. Jimmy nodded as if he understood, but Cleo was pretty sure he didn't. We want to establish our reputation as a first-rate professional tooth-pulling service. You still look clueless. I want there to be a crowd. Jimmy grinned. The more people, the better, as long as I get to go first. Absolutely. She gave him back his money for the moment, because it wasn't good business to take payment before services had been performed. They went to the playground and played a game of Lava Monster with a few other kids who were there. Jimmy ran around the jungle gym, which looked like a small castle, roaring and swiping at the kids, trying to nab them without coming all the way to the structure. It was like tag, with the added excitement of a monster climbing the walls and a moat full of molten lava keeping the players from being able to escape the playground. If you got tagged, you entered the lava pit and became a lava monster too. The game continued until all had been caught. At one point, Jimmy tripped over Barkley, who had been too slow to get out of his way. Jimmy writhed on the ground while Barkley's slobbery tongue lapped his face. "Get this dog off of me," he yelled. "He's licking me to death." The other kids laughed and cheered Barkley for getting the lava monster. When Jimmy finally got to his feet, he had only one thing to say. "That dog's breath is deadly." They started up the game again. Cleo ignored the sick feeling in her stomach, even though it seemed to be getting worse. She played dangerously, taunting the lava monster from the edges of the equipment. Jimmy snagged her leg, and she jumped into the lava pit. She climbed up and down the rope ladder in slides, trying to snatch the back of a squealing kid's shirt, or the heel, or a shoe. Barkley bounded around the structure, barking at all the excitement. Tessa and Steffi had come as promised. They ran around trying not to get caught. Emilio was there too, saying he had a loose tooth to be pulled. Cleo recognized a handful of other kids from school not in her class. She hoped they were all there to get their teeth pulled. It was time. She clambered to the top of the tallest slide, ignoring Steffi's complaints that she was overstepping lava monster boundaries. "Hey everyone," she yelled. "If you have a loose tooth you want pulled, Cleo's quick and painless tooth removal service is now officially open for business." She slid down the slide to the rubbery black turf. "And we're giving away free cookies." That got everyone's attention. Some kids even whooped with excitement. Barkley trotted alongside Josh and the rest of the kids to Cleo's table. A few adults wandered over, probably parents of customers. Jimmy had sprinted to get there first. He picked up the Nerf gun and thrust it into the air. "I'm ready!" Cleo pushed her way through the crowd. "Don't touch anything. The extractor extraordinaire is for tooth pulling only." She sucked in her breath and sudden stabbing pain was in her gut. Jimmy set the Nerf gun down and held up his hands. Okay, don't freak out." She snapped on her latex gloves and loaded a missile. "You want it recorded, right?" He nodded. "I'm going to put it on YouTube, just like little man over there." He pointed to Josh, who beamed and waved to the crowd. "Oh, and everyone who has a tooth pulled gets a picture with Josh, the boy on the video," Cleo announced. "No extra charge." Cleo nodded to Kaylee, who got her camera in position. She pulled Jimmy a little ways away from the crowd, but not too far. She wanted everyone to be able to see her tooth-pulling method, live and in person. "Which one is it?" Jimmy pointed to his lower left canine. She flipped the floss around his tooth, tightened it, and held the extractor in firing position. "Everyone, count down with me," she shouted, getting caught up in the excitement of having her first official customer. "In 5, 4, 3, Jimmy tensed next to her. 2, 1, pop! Jimmy flinched. The tooth flew behind the missile like a streaking comet's tail. Some kids cheered, a couple of adults clapped. It had worked. Cleo tried to hand Jimmy a wad of gauze, but he was too busy finding and untying his tooth. He came back holding it above his head. Woohoo! And it didn't even hurt! Cleo couldn't have asked for a better testimonial. She glanced at Kaylee to make sure she was getting this. She was. This was actually going to work. Jimmy finally calmed down enough to stick the gauze in his new hole, pay Cleo her $3, and pose for a picture with Josh. When they were done, Cleo handed him a cookie. Others held out their hands, so she went ahead and gave them cookies as well. Ugh, disgusting, Jimmy hollered. What's in these things? Uh-oh. The cookies might be a tougher sell than she had thought. Their stock had just dropped precipitously. Anise, she said, licorice flavor. They tasted okay, but remembering their taste and texture gave her a sudden urge to throw up. Anise? His face scrunched in disgust. You mean anus. These cookies taste like butt. He hucked the solid mound over the arbor. Another boy did the same. 2 or 3 dropped theirs on the ground. Barkley hungrily gobbled them up. Thanks for yanking my tooth, though. Jimmy ran off, passing Dad, who walked towards them on the asphalt trail. Cleo started to call for the next customer, but the words caught in her mouth. She doubled over and lost her cookies. All over the pavement. The crowd scattered. Ew, gross, she Ralphed. Let me out of here. Only Kaylee, Tessa, and Steffi stayed. Even Josh ran off. Barkley sniffed the vomit. Barkley, no, Dad commanded. He said something to a couple of parents who had come over to help, something about being her dad. Cleo straightened, feeling dizzy and lightheaded. Dad and Kaylee held her steady. You're early, Cleo whispered. Looks like I got here just in time. I was able to break away before the game ended. The team understood, and they were up 4-0. Are you okay, Cleo? Tessa asked. Steffi's forehead was wrinkled with concern. Cleo took a breath, trying to focus on her. I think so. Do you want your canines pulled? She looked at Tessa hopefully. Tessa glanced around at the others. Sorry, boss, Dad said. Time to close up shop. Cleo felt too awful to argue, too pukey to persuade. Yeah, I guess so. She watched from the bench as Tessa and Steffi took down the banner. Kaylee put everything in the backpack. Then Dad drove them home.